Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Dr. Ray and welcome to everyone that is new. You have probably found yourself here on my channel because you have questions about your pets, and today specifically you have a question about your pet's diet and how to make the best choice for your pet. And I want to help you with that. So a lot of confusion seems to be circulating about what to feed, what's right. Certainly we don't want to do anything that's wrong. We always want to do what's best. And there's so much information out there that it can be very confusing to pet parents. That is a really common feeling and sentiment that I have gotten from my personal patients. I am a practicing general practitioner here in the United States, but I've also seen it time and time again here on YouTube, Instagram, and all the internet options that are available. And so I was searching through my catalog to see how long I have been doing this, and I came across an earlier video that I did, one of my first videos that I did to address this question, and it was, what is the difference between Purina Pro Plan and Purina One? Why is one more expensive? Is one really better than the other? And at the time, I honestly didn't know the answer to that question. And so that was one of my very first videos 4 years ago. And so I thought it was time to update that because we have come a long way since then. We have developed this on this channel. You guys have helped me develop a pet food scoring system to try to get some of the marketing things out of the way. Those are the things that are confusing and help us focus on some core values that we want to see in our pet food. And then if the food meets those core values, then we can start looking at some of the superfluous things, some of the extras, and try to really fine tune it in. So this is your first approach. What I'm going to show you guys today is kind of a first approach on how you're going to do this process. I came up with a pet food scoring system. I have some earlier videos that go over that. Also, since that 4 years ago video, came up with 2 workbooks, one for cat, one for dog, and that goes over this process. They're really short, easy to read, and so they help you kind of navigate that quick reference guide there that you guys can check out on a website that I've also developed since the inception of this channel. So I hope you guys will check out all those tools. And if you enjoy this video, you'll dive into some of the earlier videos as well, just to kind of see how this process works. So we're gonna revisit 4 years ago. We're gonna update the information because information always changes, and we're gonna sit down and see what is the difference, if at all, between Purina One and Purina Pro Plan. And we're gonna start simple with just a regular canine adult version. If you guys like this series, if you like these type of things, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and we'll go through some of the puppy, maybe some of the cat, all those things, and see what the differences are. So what I have done is I have gone to the website and I have pulled the pertinent information. We're going to use some screenshots here to walk you through the process. So first thing that we need to do is we need to check the website, and Purina's website is really easy. You can just Google that, and they have all their products there. They also have little nice fact sheets for all their products that is going to have a lot of the pertinent information that we need. So let me go ahead and pull up the screenshot for you guys where we're going to start. So the two options, and they are very similar, and this is why I want to illustrate this for you. The first one is the Purina One chicken and rice formula. So that's just the regular adult chicken and rice formula. And then conversely, we're going to compare it to their Purina Pro Plan, which is kind of like their higher, it's still not a prescription, but it's kind of like their higher class version, which is also going to be chicken and rice. They call that one the Purina Pro Plan Complete Essentials Chicken and Rice Formula. So very similar names. We're going to check them out. We're going to see what the differences are. Now, the first question you may be asking is, why do they have two brands to begin with? Well, a lot of it is marketing. We talk a lot about marketing strategies and how marketing tries to pull you in. Purina is a big company, obviously, all pet food companies, and I know there is a lot of pull on the heartstrings, which is also marketing about smaller pet food companies and mom and pops and things like that. But the reality is they're all companies. They're all here to make money. If they didn't make money, they wouldn't exist. They can't exist. And so you will see many of the brands, not just Purina, but we have seen it time and time again, Nutrisource, Victor, just all of them, if you go through any number of my videos, you'll see that a lot of these brands have multiple iterations of food, different flavors, different textures. And yes, it is to give the consumer variety, but it's also to give a consumer variety so they're more likely to pick one of their products. And so this is what Purina has done. Many years ago, Nestle Purina started out as a farm nutrition company. And so their first step into pet nutrition wasn't actually pets at all. It was more food animals and achieving performance and achieving maximum growth, maximum performance, maximum production for food animals. And so that's where they got all their science and performance and how to maximize nutrition so that these animals and these farmers could have the best performance at the best prices, et cetera, et cetera. From that, we know a lot of farmers and things have dogs, and so that kind of spiraled into pet food and so on and so forth. So Purina really does have its roots in animal nutrition at its very basics. I don't know, we can raise your hand how many of you guys are animal science majors. That was my original major, was animal science, with a specialization in animal biology, but animal science is my core. And so a lot of these feed conversions and performance-driven analysis come from that. And so that can trickle on and can be useful in small animal medicine and small animal nutrition. And so that's where Purina started. So from there, things started spiraling. You start to get your just basic Purina things. And as the company got bigger and bigger and they diversified, they have increased their portfolio to have all of these different aspects. So in that original video, we're talking about treats. We're talking about, I think Pioneer Woman was one of their brands. They own a lot of different little subsidiaries. And so when people say, oh, Purina or this or that is a bad company, you have to realize there may be a product that you don't like or a product that did not work well with your pets, but they own a lot of little companies that maybe you didn't even realize. Now I wanted to pull up their website, and I'm having some issues with my my internet today, so I don't know that I'll be able to do that. I film out in the woods and to be away from my family and have some quiet time with you guys, and so the internet is not playing nice today to do the screen capture. But they own, let's see here, some of their brands are, I can look at it on my phone for you. So Purina owns Pro Plan and Purina One, which we're going to be doing today. They do Fancy Feast, they do Friskies, they do Alpo, Beneful, Cat Chow, Dog Chow, they do Tidy Cats, they do Beggin, they do Beyond, Busy Bone, Dental Life, Mighty Dog, and so they also, of course, have their veterinary prescription diets. They have Kit and Caboodle, they have just Whiskers Lickens, so they have a lot of different brands that they manufacture from all different price points. So it's to give people options from lower price points all the way up to veterinary prescription brands. And so we're going to see today kind of how the Purina Pro Plan compares to the Purina One, and we're going to start with the Purina One, and we're going to take a look at some screenshots here to try to evaluate the two. And we're going to use that pet food scoring system because that allows us to evaluate them on an exact, apples to apples basis. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at that Purina One package. On the package, the label is really obvious. You can see these. This is a really popular brand. You can get it at most pet food stores. You can actually get this one at the grocery store. You can get them at Tractor Supply. You can order them online at Chewy. You can order them on Amazon. And so very easily and readily available. It is not something that's going to be hard to find, which I think is an option, especially for people like myself that live in a somewhat rural community where it can be difficult to A, get deliveries, and B, have grocery stores that are close and places that you can, readily go and get something. So if I can get something at my local Tractor Supply or I can get something at my local Ace Hardware, that's going to be a lot easier than going to a pet food store, which is going to be at least 40 minutes away from me. And also getting deliveries is hit or miss. So sometimes I don't even think the mail is delivering honestly at my house anymore on Saturdays. I have not got mail on Saturday for I don't know how long. And so it's very inconsistent out here. So that's an option for people. I think it's a good option for people that need something that's readily available. It says here that it's the chicken and rice formula, and so that's pretty clear as to what you're going to be getting. It does say natural. That that word natural does have a definition in pet food. I'm going to flash it up here. I don't want to lead you wrong, so I do want to get the actual AAFCO definition of natural, and I'll flash that up here for you guys. It says it does have added vitamins and minerals and nutrients, and it does have a microbiome balance with prebiotic fiber for gut health and immune support. If you guys are not familiar what prebiotics are, those are the fibers that the gut bacteria feed on and you are using to live and live in your pet's gut. So not only does your pet have to eat, but your pet's gut bacteria have to eat, and they do that with fiber, and that fiber is prebiotic. So it is very important that you have the right blend of prebiotics for the bacteria that live there. So it's just like our pets, right? So you want to feed dog food, you want to feed cat food, you want to feed horse the right kind of hay, cattle the right kind of hay, goat the right kind of food, fish the right kind of food. Same thing with our bacteria. There are specific foods that are meant for specific bacteria, and so the type of prebiotic that is in a food is really important. If that is a new concept to you, I do have a video all on prebiotics and probiotics, and I will link that at the end in the little suggested next videos thing that pops up at the end so that you guys can have that information. So that's the front of the package. It's pretty simple. I like a simple front of the package. It's just, not overwhelming and a complete overload for you guys. So that's the simple Purina One front of the package. The next thing that we want to get to, so you can see we've assigned no points here. This front of the package is usually all marketing. There's not usually a whole lot of information here. What we want is in that little nutritional detailer that they have for all their foods. I think that is wonderful. It is, some transparency to let pet owners and veterinarians have this information without having to hound them down. I think it is definitely a red flag when you have to hound a company down for this information. So I like that it is directly available for all their foods. Not all of them, but all the Purina Ones and all the Purina Pro Plans. I didn't check every single, every single one of those brands that I mentioned. So the first thing that we want to look for, and the first thing that I suggest that you guys look for, is what's called the AAFCO statement. If you're not familiar with what the AAFCO statement is, I do have a foundationals playlist, and of course all this is explained in these workbooks. It is very important that you know this nomenclature and you understand what these things mean as you are going into your pet food journey. If you're saying to yourself, I don't know what she's talking about, I don't know what that is, that means you need to do some of the foundational work before you really start getting, stepping your toes into pet food nutrition, because if you don't know what these things mean, that is the way that marketing and outside influence try to manipulate you with some of these half-truths. So you must know what that means. If you don't know what that means, we're gonna go over it briefly now, but definitely check out the workbook and some of the earlier foundational playlists that I have. All right, so for the Purina One chicken and rice formula, the AAFCO statement says it is formulated to meet the nutritional levels established by AAFCO for maintenance of adult dogs. So what that means is they didn't feeding trial this dog food, and they didn't put it through some rigorous testing to see how dogs perform. They did use an established formula that they came up with that met the parameters that AAFCO sets forward. So AAFCO sets a very large range of parameters to allow for all these competitors in the market. What we're going to be using on this channel to evaluate this pet food is numbers from Small Animal Clinical Nutrition textbook. It is a much tailored and a much more optimized range of values. Why do we do that? Because pretty much all foods sold in the United States are going to be AAFCO compliant. What does that mean? It means that it's, the safety is ensured, that nothing that you feed your pet, as long as it is a commercially available food that has that AAFCO statement on it, is going to be severely detrimental to your pet. Your pet is not going to drop dead if they eat one of these foods. I know that is a popular scare tactic, and a lot of how some of these companies and these influencers scare you guys into believing that certain foods are killing your pet or maybe killed your pet. That is absolutely not true. They are all safe. The thing is, they are not all optimized. And so we are going to be using numbers and we're going to be shooting for numbers that are optimized, because we know they're all technically safe if they're sold here in the United States. So this food was formulated, and it was formulated with adults in mind. That is very important. We want an adult food. We do not want an all life stage food. We do not want a puppy food. And so they are going to get, as we're going through the pet food scoring system, they are going to get 1 point for the AAFCO statement, because it wasn't feeding trial. We would have liked that, but they did formulate it for the correct life stage, so they are going to get 1 point out of the 10 for that. The next thing we're going to be looking at is the ingredient list. And the ingredient list is, you know, people definitely gravitate to that, and I understand why. It is very important though to remember that the ingredient list as it is on the package, not the actual ingredients that are in there, but as it is disclosed on the package, which is all that you guys have to go off of, is very deceptive and purposefully manipulated. Okay, so that ingredient list is on water weight. You cannot compare one ingredient to another ingredient list because the ingredient lists are a ratio only pertaining to that food. So you can't take food A and compare ingredient list to food B. They are not the same. They are not equivalent. And it seems like you can do that. And again, a lot of half-truths from other channels and other influencers suggest that you can do that. But I'm telling you, from a nutrition standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, from a understanding the industry standpoint, you cannot do that. They are not the same. They are not apples to apples, as much as it seems on the surface that they would be. And so the only thing you want to look at is in block at the very beginning, if you want to do some more of this very deep research, is the food grain-free? Because you don't want that. You do not want to set your pet up for dilated cardiomyopathy. You do not want that risk. And is it raw? You do not want to run the risk of some bacterial contamination. You do not want to run the risk of the public health issues that are related to feeding raw. There's no really benefit to feeding raw or grain-free. So as long as your food doesn't have those two things, you're probably starting out with a pretty good base bones. And so they are going to get 2 points for that because it is a chicken and rice formula. It is not a raw formula. So we are up to 3 points going into the feeding guide. So I like to look at the feeding guide because I like to make sure that a pet food company is recommending for you guys the appropriate amount to feed your pet. Pet obesity, huge issue in this country, probably around the world. I can't speak to around the world, but I know some of my colleagues in other countries could probably attest that obesity is a major issue in our pets. It shortens their lifespan. We have studies that show that. It leads to joint issues. It leads to decreased quality of life. And so obesity is a major issue. I know a lot of people do not feel comfortable with calculating their pet's calories. And so for me, if a client can pick up a package and feel comfortable that they are going to be recommended the correct feeding amount, I'm happy about that. And I give the company a point for that. So here on the feeding guide, you can see that for a 20-pound dog, they're recommending 1 3/4 cup of food. Each cup of food of this particular food is 360 kcals. So let's do the math really quick. 360 times 1.25. Their suggestion 450 calories for your pet. I'm telling you, just for ease of going through this, that is the correct resting energy requirement calculation for a 20-pound dog. Again, if you're not familiar with calculating that, I do have some videos on how to do that, and of course it's in the workbook. Please, if you do not know how to do that and this is foreign to you, do reference those. It is very, very important for your pet's health. Probably more important than what you feed your pet is how much you feed your pet and preventing obesity, to be quite honest. So that is going to be another point there. So we are up to 1 for the AAFCO statement, 2 for the ingredient list, 1 for the feeding guide. Now we're going to get into what everybody is always most interested in, and that is the nutrient analysis. There are 5 points that we can have here in the nutrient analysis. So if they hit all the points, they can get a 9 out of 10, which is a 90%. And everybody knows a 90% is an A. And so that would be a good option, potentially, at least a good option for you guys to dig into the food a little bit deeper. We're going to be looking at the guaranteed analysis here just for ease of use to illustrate some things, but it actually is very important. We're not going to do that in this video, but really these should be converted to a dry matter basis. And that's how you really make sure that foods are comparable to each other. So if you take all the moisture out of food, you can compare a dry food to a canned food, to a semi-moist food, to a fresh food, to a frozen food. It doesn't matter because they're all going to be on the same basis. These two foods that we are doing today are both dry foods with a similar moisture content, so I'm not doing that just for ease of comparison in this video, but really it should be converted to a dry matter basis. That is what the standards are that we are going to be comparing to. But just take a note, we're not doing that today, but if a food interests you, I do highly suggest that you do that and reevaluate the numbers. Reevaluate the numbers in light of that information. So I'm going to pull up for myself here my chart that I compiled from Small Animal Clinical Nutrition. Again, it is in this workbook as a quick reference guide for you guys, and I'm happy to have done that for you and make it nice and clear so there are no questions to what we are going to be looking for. All right. Okay. And so what we're shooting for, ideally, optimized for an adult, we want 15 to 30%. This is coming in at 26, which is correct. Fat, we want between 10 and 20. They're at 16, which is correct. Fiber needs to be less than 5. They're at 3, so that is correct. That's bringing us up to a 7. So already I'm like, okay, this is great. If we can get a couple more points here in the minerals, this is going to be a really good option to dive a little bit deeper into. And so here we get into the minerals. Calcium is at the very top of the reference range at 1%. It probably will shoot over slightly when we correct for that moisture, but we'll go ahead and give them a point for that in this scenario. And then the phosphorus at 0.8, same scenario. It might shoot over a little bit when we correct for dry matter. But this is going to put this up to a 9 out of 10. The only thing that they did not optimize in this particular diet was it was not feeding trial. And the reason why they most likely did that is they have so many brands and options and flavors. They probably did feeding trial. Some of them just cost prohibitive to feeding trial. All of them, I don't know that for sure, but that does happen a lot of times in these big companies because I know for a fact that Purina does do feeding trials on a lot of their diets. Let's look really quick down here at the vitamin E. A lot of people ask me about vitamin E, and this may be the differentiating factor between this and the Purina Pro Plan. Vitamin E is essential. The minimum that you want is about 45. That's what AAFCO recommends. Ideally, we want the vitamin E to be like 400, 500. As you can see, you're greater than 400 for the really good antioxidant effects that a lot of people are looking for. And so we're going to fall a little bit short there at 250. They're not listing vitamin C. I have that in my chart. A lot of people, also vitamin C is another one for immune support, and so that would be another one potentially to look at as a secondary factor. And so this one, the Purina One chicken and rice formula, often you can find it anywhere. The price point is usually really good for a lot of people, and it's scoring a 9 out of 10. And so I think that this could be a really good option for a lot of people. Now let's see, if you have money to spend, let's see what the difference is going to be if you guys venture into the Purina Pro Plan option. We're going to use the same, again, we're going to go through the same steps, and so you can see how easy it is to compare the two together. And so we're going to start out with the package. So again, we're looking at the package here. We've got the dog in the front, just have the name on there. It says they have some guaranteed life probiotics in here for microbiome maintenance, so that's a little bit different. The other one said prebiotics, that is the fiber. This one actually that feeds the bacteria. This one's saying probiotics, that is the actual bacteria in there. Other than that, not a whole lot in the front of the package. Very simple. I like that. They're not trying to confuse you. They're not putting silly pictures of wolves and all that crazy stuff that is trying to pull out your heartstrings. Straightforward, adult, complete essential, chicken and rice. Let's move on. So that is what we are going to do. All right, same fashion, we are going to start looking for the AAFCO statement and things like that. Okay, and the AAFCO statement here is saying animal feeding test. So they did do the feeding test for this one, using AAFCO procedure to substantiate the Pro Plan shredded blend chicken and rice formula provides complete and balanced nutrition for maintenance of adults. So you can see right there the difference. Right at the beginning, they did do a feeding trial on this particular food, so they're actually going to get 2 points for the AAFCO statement, whereas the Purina One only got 1 point. The next thing we're going to look at again is that ingredient list. And so same 2 points are going to be afforded there, not grain-free, not raw, and so you're going to get 2 points there as well. That's going to bring us up to 4 points. We're going to go into the feeding guide. They're suggesting 1 2/3 cup of this particular food. It is 369 calories. So 369 times 1.6. 590 right there at the top of the range, but it is in the range, so they are going to get another point there. So we are going to 5 points going in to the guaranteed analysis. All right, let's pull that up and pull up our same chart because we are going to evaluate everybody the same. Protein is at 26%, so same as the Purina One, and that is going to get us a point. Fat at 16%, exactly the same, we're going to get a point. Fiber, 3%, exactly the same, we're going to get a point. Calcium, exactly the same, we're going to get a point. Phosphorus, exactly the same, we are going to get a point. So that makes the Purina Pro Plan shredded blend chicken and rice formula a 10 out of 10. What was the difference between this formula as we were evaluating them and the other one on the pet food scoring system, the PSS? The only difference was a point deduction on the Purina One for the feeding trials. That's where you guys have to decide, you know, is that a game breaker for me or is it not? For me personally, it's not, but it may be for you. And so that's something to consider. Now that we know the two scores on both of these products, we can start going into some of the secondary factors that I mentioned. And so first one that we talked about was vitamin E. That's a big one. Vitamin E and the Pro Plan, if you remember, was 250. It was below that 400 that we really are looking for to get the antioxidant effects. Here with the Pro Plan, you can see they did bump that up and you have 460, so you are going to get that added benefit. And so that's an example of the difference that you're going to see. This one also had the probiotics in there versus just the prebiotic fibers. They actually had the bacteria, the probiotics in there. And so that is the difference between when a company has maybe a budget-friendly or a more price-conscious brand, and then they have a more elevated brand. Those are the things you're going to be looking for. Doesn't mean the lower brand is going to kill your dog. Doesn't mean the lower brand is junk. Doesn't mean the lower brand is all these things that nasty things people like to say. I think it can be a good option because you want to pick a food that you can sustainably feed, that is in your price point, that you can sustain for long periods of time. There's no point in breaking the bank on a food that you're not going to be able to, you know, continue to feed, and you're going to have to change it. That's not good for your dog's health or digestion either. It's not good for your mental health. And so I want it to be something you can readily get, readily afford, that your pet likes, and, you know, ideally has optimal nutrition, which both of these options do. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did not see the original video, I will link it at the end. Do not laugh. It's from 4 years ago. It is from one of my very first videos. I think it has some horrendous music. I do apologize. I cannot take that out years later, but if you do like these type of videos, be sure to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. Let your friends know this so they can learn this valuable method too. Check out my workbooks on my website, animaldocray.com. Check out my Instagram. Check out my Amazon affiliates. You can see a list of all of the foods that scored well, easily purchasable for you guys. So I'll catch you guys next time, and